Welcome back to another exciting episode of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined by our RX Muscle staff therapist, Lesley Timbol. Welcome back, Lesley. Hope you're having a great day.
I am. Thanks, Dave.
This topic was something that a lot of people had suggested to me that we cover. It's obsessive compulsive behavior, obsessive compulsive disorder, people who feel compelled to do certain things. I always kind of, probably erroneously lumped all my little rituals I do at night between brushing teeth and taking my contact lenses out and washing my hair and cleaning my ears. I have like a whole list of things as OCD behavior, but I don't necessarily know if that necessarily is. Differentiate between, routines and OCD behavior.
That's a great question, Dave. A lot of us have routines, whether it's, getting up in the morning to go to work, as far as like whether getting the kids ready, like you said, brushing your teeth, going to bed. We all have routines. Having a routine in itself does not mean that you have OCD. Now keep in mind OCD, so here's the two big pieces with OCD is having what we call thoughts and behaviors. So there are these thoughts are obsessions. It's basically haunting us that if I don't do X, I'm going to feel this obsession and I won't be able to get it out of my mind. It's a tremendous amount of anxiety, and it can really impact someone's life. And oftentimes people who have OCD know that their rituals, or let's say their anxiety is not necessarily based on reality. They're very self-aware. They're like, I just can't help myself. I just, this is what I do. This is how I've always been, and this is how I'm always going to be. And, the idea of these behaviors is to help kind of almost self-soothe the anxiety. But the problem is that it doesn't, because it can't help but do these things. Now, it might alleviate the anxiety a little bit, right, but it keeps coming back. So the root cause is never addressed.
What about the people like who, when they walk, down the sidewalk, they won't step on a crack? They can't do it. They go nuts.
Or Tiger Woods wearing his red shirt. I mean, we have there's a whole bunch of these kinds of things. And keep in mind, a lot of times when we hear these words OCD, we think, okay, that means that we're sick, that we've got some, like when we say the word disorder, it has a very negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
But, there's something that we use in the field called the DSM-5, and that's it's basically a manual that talks about a lot of these disorders.
Oh, they're up to the 5th edition. I see. They only had the 3rd edition when I was in school.
Well, when I was in school, it was the 4th edition when I graduated, and now it's the 5th edition. But a lot of the concepts are fairly the same. The thing is that what I want people to understand is everyone is in that book. So just because you have a disorder is actually that you're normal. It's a spectrum.
Right.
So it's, where do you fit on the spectrum? There's the low and the high. Let's say depression. There are people who, let's say on the lower level, who have depressive symptoms, can get up, go to work, they can work out, but a lot of stuff is going inside and they're not feeling happiness. They might be going through, whether it might be midlife, they might be struggling with other kinds of things, lack of motivation. So it can carry out in other things. They're still having depressive symptoms compared to, let's say, on a more higher continuum of depression, where it could be thoughts of suicide. It could be, I can't get out of bed. So again, depression's just one example. Same thing with OCD. There are times when OCD is okay. As far as going over the sidewalks, it's not a really big deal.
If that's all you're doing, right? If that's all
it's an annoyance. Okay, I think it's an annoyance, and I think it's something that you can actually work on. So there are certain rituals that I think,
but
like brushing your teeth.
Why would someone have a problem with stepping on a crack on a sidewalk? Like what psychologically is going on there that they can't step on this crack? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
It's what that crack represents. Oh. And that's the thing. That's what we do in therapy. We kind of go deeper into it to saying, okay, it's not necessarily, okay, instead of don't step on the crack, because that's kind of ridiculous. It's telling someone, well, don't be sad. Well, it's a little bit deeper than that. And that's where we go, is to the cause. And the cause for one person, Dave, can be very different than the cause for another person.
Is it ever like psychosexual, like where they think like the crack is like a vagina or something like that? Stuff on it.
I've heard the full range. Nothing surprises me. I've been in this industry for over 20 years and nothing surprises me.
more relevant to bodybuilding, because I noticed when I would diet for competitions, I would find myself getting a lot more what I would call obsessive compulsive about doing things. Like I was like doing laundry like 4 times a day. I was cleaning the house more, and I was doing it probably to not think about food, but it was getting to the point where I was like, everything had to be in perfect order, organized perfectly. And as soon as I started eating after the show, all that behavior went completely out the window, and it was no longer relevant to me. But while I was dieting, it was like almost like a ritual that I could not stop.
That's a lot part of what I call prep brain. When we're, our bodies physically and mentally, when we're going through such a tough time in prep, especially as you get closer to the show, our mind can play tricks on us. And the way we try to kind of manage those jitters, those, not just the physical, the mental jitters, is we need a sense of control over an uncontrollable situation. A lot of people are fixated on how am I going to do at the show? Well, let's focus on today. What can you do today? Right. And that's what I tell a lot of my, soccer players, baseball players. Okay, forget the goal, forget the scoreboard. Focus on the moment right now. What can you do today? And sometimes people are like, okay, well, how do I distract myself from not going into the future? And sometimes that's what people do. Okay, let me clean. Let me totally reorganize my house, and that keeps them busy. Now, keep in mind, for a short period of time, it serves the function of trying to get your mind off of, let's say, the day of the show, because stressing about the show is not going to change the show day. Yeah. It can change your mental game going into it, but you want to focus on right now and what you can do. And if that means you have some OCD behaviors, it's not necessarily a bad thing as long as it doesn't continue after the show. And again, it's short term and it's reasonable. Now, if it's affecting your training and all of a sudden you're cleaning and you're missing meals, as an example, that's an issue.
No, what I would notice is it would be like I wanted to control every variable of everything I did so severely that I absolutely, I wanted everything in perfect order, and I didn't want to leave any variable like in other words, I didn't want to make a mistake. So I think by being super organized, I had everything in order, and I was always ready to take my next vitamins, my next meal, my next this, my next that, and then but I think because I was so hungry, I would clean in between because it would keep my mind off of. It wasn't like I didn't have a lot to do. I was kind of bored, so I think that kind of kept my mind off it. But I know guys, Guy Sister Nina brought this up on the show on Heavy Muscle Radio last night that Brad Rowe wakes up at 3 a.m. and has to clean his entire house. I'm sure his house is probably cleaner when he wakes up in the morning than most people's houses are normally, but he has to clean the entire house every day. I mean, where does that come from? Something like that,
I would have to talk to Brad about diving a little bit more into that. I have a theory. I mean, I don't know Brad very well, but this, what I know of him, he's a very diligent kind of person. He's very intelligent. He's very introspective. I think there's some demons there and some unresolved issues. And I think his way of kind of masking that is being able to do things he can control, which is the house. So you can control how clean your house is, but if you can't control up here and clean this up, it's going to come out in other kind of behaviors. Cleaning is just one of them.
Now, let's say you find yourself maybe caught up in these obsessive compulsive behaviors where it's affecting your life now. It's like too much. You're obsessing about too many things. You're worrying about things that you have no control over. You're doing too many rituals, and it's starting to like irritate, maybe the people around you, and it's actually affecting your ability to be happy every day. What do you do? What are some of the behavioral modifications or techniques you can use without directly talking to a therapist necessarily, that you can employ at home to help combat this?
Well, because a lot of people with OCD know that these behaviors or these, these compulsions, these thoughts, they're unreasonable. They just can't help themselves. First of all, it's being aware, okay, that, to saying, what would happen if you did not do that? The anxiety climbs. Can you distract yourself during that during that point in time? It's like a temptation. What happens is that it goes up a curve. So it can start lower and then it increases as far as the anxiety is concerned. If you're able to ride this roller coaster, as far as the temptation to do that follow-up behavior, whatever that might be, whether it's clean the house at 3 a.m. or whatever it is, if you can reroute that in your brain to something else that's not a ritualistic behavior, then you're able to ride that temptation, and it will go down a little bit. Now, your roller coaster will be like this because your mind's not used to doing that. We're creatures of a habit, and so are our minds. And I think I might have mentioned this to you before, Dave. A lot of times, what we do in bodybuilding, as far as building up a muscle, this is what we got to build up to.
Right.
And when we have these habits that we're trying to overcome, whether you're a bodybuilder or not, it's about rerouting that brain into a better mind connection instead of the ritualistic behavior to do something else. And that may not necessarily, it doesn't have, it could be a different behavior, but not ritualistic. Right. And I mean, in a pattern where you have to do it. So I would say is have an arsenal of tools, different tools. So, and again, I'm not saying don't clean your house, but you don't have to necessarily clean it every day unless you're having a party there every day. But I mean, it's, you know, having some other things in place. Now that could be, let's say, meditation as an example. It could be, you know what, start drawing, start listening to music, you know, put a different music list together, different kinds of things. So you're training your brain not to go to that default one behavior. You span a bunch of different behaviors. Obviously in cognitive behavioral therapy, we go a little bit deeper than that, but I'm saying for people who don't go to therapy, that would be my first go-to to suggest to people.
Yeah. Like when Guy Cicerino used to come over to my house, he would like organize my sneakers and like he would clean my coffee table. But I don't think that was necessarily OCD behavior. I think he just likes to clean. Like he's a clean fanatic, and he just likes to see organization, and he gets almost like pleasure out of it. So to him, it's not really like disrupting his life. It's something that's, you know, it almost like is congruent with his life. Now, I don't know if it irritates, you know, whoever he's dating or at the time or whatever, but, you know, it works for him because it keeps him very organized. And I think he always got great results as a bodybuilder because he was so organized. Matter of fact, he had a journal where he would basically, if he went to the bathroom, he would write it down on the journal. And, you know, he did this for years. He probably still does it. You know, for 20 years, he's been doing this, and it just makes him a more functional, you know, productive person. Is that necessarily a bad thing, or is that a good thing? When does it become something that maybe you should be concerned about?
So I don't see it as a bad thing because it doesn't affect his functioning in life. He still is able to do what he wants to do. Now, if he was the type of person, he's not, but if he was the type of person to saying, I got to clean, and that means I can't go out with my friends if I want to, or if I can't do enjoyable activities because I have to be trapped cleaning, because, you know, whatever, the attic needs cleaning and I haven't done that since last week. That's an issue. That's an issue. And also, you know, if it did affect his relationships, then I would say, okay, let's talk about that too. We ought to talk about expectations. Is there something that we can change in that? But that doesn't sound like that's the case for Guy. So, you know, that's what I would say would be different. Now, the thing is, these ritualistic behaviors can be good. If you're, in this case, a bodybuilder, if you don't have certain rituals, if you don't eat every 2.5, 3 hours, and that's a problem. Yeah. If you can't train on schedule, that's a problem. So, I mean, there's certain things you have to do. And this is with any sport. You have to be diligent. You have to be on top of things. That requires organization. So what I tell people is be careful when you when you Google, first of all. Yeah. So if you say, hey, this is what I do, and, you know, do I have a disorder? Be careful what you read, because it has to be in a context. I remember several years ago, this is well before I did PEDs, and I had a blood test done, and I don't even remember what it was, but something came back in out of whack. So I Googled what this meant, and when I Googled it, it said I had 3 to 6 months to live, and I was like, what? So it's like calling my doctor going, what's going on? Yeah. She goes, no. Because she knew I was training in my basement and I was doing this, I don't know, this 1,000 calorie workout at the time. But anyway, so just because of the way what I was doing, it made my levels a little bit different than, let's say, the average person. Yeah. But no, you have to be careful when you decipher things, to saying, hey, you know, I check all these boxes. Does that mean I have OCD or OCPD? So those are very, very similar. Yeah. But and I like to say, well, be careful how you interpret that, because I don't know, like there would be probably 90%, if not higher, of bodybuilders would fit into OCD or OCPD if you use that criteria only. Again, you have to put it into context.
I'm sure I would fit into that by the book, but I know that, like, if I don't if there's a certain, because I have all these rituals I go through every day, just all the pills I take and vitamins, and I have to do things in sequence, and I have all the little like things I do. And as I get older, I add more and more to the list. But if I miss something, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm not like stressed out. I don't have anxiety. Like, if I forgot a dose of fiber today, all right, big deal. I'm not gonna worry about it. So I don't let it like affect my functionality. Like, I like to do things in a certain way because I feel like they will elicit the best results in terms of my health or how I look or how I feel mentally. But if I only get 4 hours of sleep at night and I want to get 8, it's not like it's going to ruin my whole day or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's the thing. How does it impact the rest of your day, your life? And that's the thing. And that's, if anything, we call those idiosyncrasies as we get older, all these little things that we do.
I have a lot of idiosyncrasies. That's for sure.
You wouldn't be alone.
No. No, but I think you're right. For bodybuilding purposes, that's important to have a list of stuff that you do and to be diligent, because that's how we get good results. But I think when it crosses that line where you start being unhappy because you're like a slave to certain rituals where you can't function if you don't do them, that's when it starts getting, weird. And so how do people, maybe we can end with this. How do people differentiate between, hey, this is good for me versus this is not so good for me? Maybe people are telling me I'm a little kooky.
Well, sometimes we need to have a third opinion on that, but just to kind of give you a tentative idea, are you able to still function and do what you need to do in the day, what your goals are? Does it impede that kind of stuff? Now, I'm going to be careful by saying, does it impede relationships? Because anyone in prep knows that it will affect your relationship when you're in prep. So again, we have to keep it into context. If it's all year round, that's different. Sorry, Dave, I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Now.
Now I can.
Okay. Let me just make sure we're good. Okay. No. How's that? Better?
Much better. Thanks.
All right. Let's say like it's off season. I have a bunch of rituals, but I'm like so completely consumed by them that they're starting to annoy my spouse or my girlfriend or whatever like that. And luckily it's not my case, but I'm just saying I have worked with people that this happens with, and it's annoying them so much that it's ruining the relationship with the person, because they have to do all these crazy things every single day. They can never miss a meal. They can never miss a workout, even if they can't rearrange it. If they have to do chest on Wednesday and then they have to move it to Thursday, it's like they freak out. Like, what do you do for like if you have like couples counseling, like how do you get past that? What do you tell a person like that?
I say, let's go to your worst case scenario. Bring it on. Okay. If it's supposed to be, leg day and you do chest or something else, okay, what's going to happen if you switch it up?
Well, I'm not going to get enough recovery from my, they'll give you a million reasons why they have to do it on that particular day. I eat a certain way this day. I just rested the day before, and people get nuts with that stuff. I see it. I have clients that are like that,
But I go, okay, then that's what I would expect them to say.
Right.
And I said, okay, if that happens, then what? I take it, okay, let's go one step further, because people get stuck on I have to do this because if I don't, it's going to mess up my results in some fashion.
Right.
And to say, okay, if it does mess up your results, let's go further. Let's dig down deep. And that's what people don't do. They get stuck at that one level. Sure. And they can't go down deeper. And that's why it helps to work with someone objective, because they can take you to a level that you're not used to going. Right. And that's uncomfortable.
I think it probably alleviates stress if you can tell someone else about these issues too, because then they could, it's like you're not, because I think people feel like they're in this alone, so to speak, and they feel like they're in this box. They can't get out of this box, and no one can help them,
And then, there's the other piece about talking to the partner, about saying, how can I support that partner, into guiding them on what they can be doing and changing maybe their expectations. So when I work with couples, it's never one person. I always work with them as a team. I said there's no I in the word team. So let's work on what this person needs to do as well as what this person needs to do as far as expectations and behaviors moving forward to support one another moving forward. Because the idea is to be able to create that relationship, not just the physical part, but the mental and the emotional part.
Yeah, the sad part of this whole thing, Lesley, is that the people that seem to be the most OCD are probably the best bodybuilders.
Oh, 100%. And it's not just bodybuilding. You name one athlete. I mean,
you're right on the board. Like there's a fine line between being OCD, you know, where you're certifiably to OCD and you have a problem, and being just almost OCD where you're actually a great bodybuilder because of the fact that you're so on top of everything that you're doing, you know.
It's learning how to, if you want to be the best athlete and you have OCD or OCPD tendencies, it's mastering it. If you can master it. So it's like saying, if I have anxiety, if I can coach you on how to make those butterflies fly in formation, you can take it to a level you have never taken it before. Right. So it's not saying, how do I get rid of this anxiety? It's how do you make this anxiety work for you? And that's where people get stuck.
I agree. 100. Very good advice. And if you guys out there are listening and you feel like you might be stuck in this little box that we're talking about and you need some help, you can contact Lesley. Lesley, give them your number so they can set up an appointment with you.
So 416-805-6155. You can also send me a DM on my Instagram, which is Lesley_mental_iron. And if I finally fixed my YouTube channel page, so it's under Mental Iron, so you can see all my videos. I'll be doing some stuff later. And if there's anyone watching that's a bodybuilder, whether you're currently competing or not, or if you've never competed, but you're a bodybuilder and you have OCD or OCPD, let me know. And we'll do an episode together this week and I'll post it on my my podcast.
There you go. That's a great little opportunity for people. Well, guys, like I said, if you have any of these tendencies or it's affecting your lifestyle, contact Lesley. She can definitely help you out. For now, we are out of time. I'm Dave Palumbo with Lesley Timbol. We will see you next week. If you guys have any suggestions for future show topics, please put them in the comments below.
Thanks, guys.